You're all right. We'll start without you. It's fine. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our formal session of the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners on March 5th at 10 a.m. And I'll ask Kale to please lead us in the flag salute.
Flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for that. C is our calendar session. Is there any changes that need to be made?
No.
No? Okay.
Go see my hand away. We do need to schedule an executive session possibly for next Thursday at 9 a.m. if it works for your calendars. And it's to discuss litigation.
Yeah, that's fine for me. You need an hour, so like 9 a.m. or
I don't know if we need a full hour, maybe 9:30.
okay,
So we'll get that noticed and scheduled for 9:30.
perfect. Does that fit?
That works for me.
Commissioner, is that good?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. D is public comment. If you have a public comment, raise your hand or your virtual hand if you're online. Seeing none. Department updates. We're joined by our Health and Human Services Director, Lindsay Manfred. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Well, I have a presentation that I think the team is getting geared up. As always, there's a lot happening in HHS, so I did my best to distill it down to some highlights. There were a couple of requests specifically from Commissioner Sterrett when we met earlier this week around some of our behavioral health access, as well as any of the HR1 Medicaid changes. So I'll make sure to touch on those. If there's anything I don't touch on, please feel free to ask. And if I talk at a high level about something and you want me to go deeper, just let me know. All right. Okay, so this first part is just a snapshot of services from last year. So looking at the total number of services we provided and the total number of people that we provide those services to. And those are unduplicated, so that means that those are individual, unique people, even though some of them may have accessed multiple service lines, which is not terribly uncommon for us. I will say the numbers are pretty stable from the last couple of years. We did see a dip, as most places did during the pandemic, but we certainly got back up to our typical numbers and have remained there. Go ahead. One of the questions that was asked was around our behavioral health access. So I just wanted to share a little bit about this with all of you. We do have statutory requirements as the community mental health program to have certain access requirements, and those include doing a first assessment on individuals within 10 days of their first contact with us and having them see their therapist within 30 days after that assessment. So we are well within those timelines, as you can see. We have the average day until assessment looks a little bit different depending on the program. About 3 days for our adults in McMinnville, about 5 days for our adults in Newburgh. It's just a smaller clinic, so sometimes it can take a little bit longer to get in. And then for youth, about 5 days from the time someone contacts us via phone or something like that to when they get their appointment scheduled for an assessment. After they get their assessment, they get assigned their clinician, their therapist, and as you can see, it takes an average of 17 days from that assessment to their first therapy appointment and 12 days from the assessment to their first therapy appointment with youth. Like I said, we're well within our timelines that we are statutorily required to, but we certainly do try very hard to get folks in as soon as possible. The one difference in terms of people who will always be seen much sooner than even the days here are those that are presenting with any sort of risk of suicidality or homicidality. Those individuals are seen right away. They get enrolled in services right away and are seen as often as we can. You can see here in just January and February so far this year, we have enrolled 171 new clients into our adult services and the 93 into our youth services. So not a small number in just 2 months, but we've got a busy team over there. Just some things to highlight here. We have been able to get our HHS vacancy rate down to 11%. This is really good news for us. The height of our vacancy rate during sort of pandemic and shortly post-pandemic was 17%. That's as high as we got. That's very felt, as you can imagine, having 17% of your staff. And while we did have that high number, we actually were one of the lowest ones in the state, while other places were grappling with numbers in the 20s and 30%. So we remained better than most, but still certainly struggled. So that 11% feels much better. Pre-pandemic, just to give you a reference point, we were generally running around 7%. So we haven't bounced all the way back for sure, but we're getting much closer. I'll talk a little bit later about this, but there are still some really challenging types of positions to fill, and that's largely what that 11% is made up of. We have been able to activate our 911 active 911 system. So this has allowed us to get information directly from 911 dispatch centers. We're not a dispatched organization, meaning they don't use us like they would police and fire, where they triage and then send to us without law enforcement or EMS. But what it allows us to do is to monitor that, so we don't have to rely on our partners to call us out when there is something that is related to a behavioral health situation in the community. They're able to monitor that themselves, and they're able to deploy. This has been a great help to our team, to our dispatch centers, and certainly to law enforcement, who no longer have to take that step to call us when they are arriving on a situation where it feels like it would be relevant for us to be there. It was a lot of coordination and work through the dispatch centers, through law enforcement, and our mobile crisis team, but seems to be running really well. We have seen a pretty significant increase in the number of mobile crisis calls, and at this point in time, we're really unclear on if that is actually an increase in the number of situations in the community, or just that this system has streamlined the processes and allowed us to be present on more calls.
Are you using, is that going well with Newburgh having a different system than the rest of Wycombe?
Yeah, good question. So we had initially just started this with McMinnville, with Wycombe.
Yeah.
And as of last week, we're live in Newburgh as well.
Oh, great.
So it took a little bit longer, just a little different process, but
Right.
now that's happening as well. We also, just as we're thinking about Newburgh specifically, historically, there has been a long desire to have mobile crisis stationed in Newburgh, and we've just never had the staffing to do that. And while we don't have the staffing to do that, 7 days a week, 24/7, like we do in McMinnville, we do have several days a week where we have staff on site, so that when they are deployed, it's a much faster response for the people there, which is great. The new electronic health record system development, this is quite the undertaking. It's been a multi-year process. The contract came to you not terribly long ago to approve that contract. The work is going well. It is just very time intensive. We have a third-party contractor who's supporting the work in terms of coordination, but even with that, it is taking a tremendous amount of our operations staff time to develop it. But we need to make sure it's right. So it's time well spent, and we are estimating that we will go live in early 2027. Suicide Prevention Coalition launched a few months ago. It's through Public Health, and I will just say it has been really amazing. There have been so many community partners come together for this cause. And of course, this is not new work to Yamhill County, to behavioral health or public health. But what is different is having everyone at the table to really have these conversations in a much more coordinated way, in a way that we can really amplify the work happening and build on everything going on. They've already secured some grant funding that you all have seen come through you. They're pursuing other funds to find ways to implement the things the coalition is brainstorming. So that's really exciting. And I hope that they continue to get as much engagement as they have, because it's been really wonderful. And then lastly, this one's not very exciting, although it does take up a lot of our staff time, so I thought it was worth mentioning. Somehow all the stars aligned or misaligned, and all of our audits fell on the same calendar year. So all of our behavioral health ones, our public health ones, and our developmental disabilities ones. The developmental disabilities, we have a huge on-site audit that lasts several days. It happens every 2 years. Public health, same thing, although that one lasts all month long, where the state is down for a month-long process of reviewing us, happens every 3 years, and then our behavioral health ones are every 2 years. All of them happened over the summer and fall, and all of them went really well. We got really high marks for all of those things. We're still waiting on the final paperwork for all of those things in terms of what any findings were, and once we get those, we will certainly share them with you as well. Go ahead. Maybe.
Wing it.
I won't just start telling jokes, I promise. So talked about some good things. Of course, we've got a lot of challenges. We've got a lot of threats out there. So I wanted to make sure we touched on these, some of which I think folks are aware of, others might be new. As you know, our housing programs, we operate 163 units of behavioral health housing, and the majority of those are funded through a really wonderful partnership of who owns the building and the housing authority, which are not the same group. We master lease those apartment complexes from the owner of the property. And then we get Section 8 housing vouchers for the individuals who live there, and that supports the costs of the master lease that we have. One of the challenges that we're experiencing right now is the Section 8 housing voucher freeze. And when that is happening, that means we're not getting vouchers, and we have either two options. Either we fill those units with individuals where there's no income and therefore we can't support the program, or we leave those units vacant. Right now, we are working very diligently to find any money that we can, including working with the state, looking at grants, things of that nature. And sadly, there's just not a lot out there. I'm working very closely with the Housing Authority director, who's been amazing to work with. And we had a meeting about 10 days ago and have a couple of ideas in terms of some problem solving we might be able to do in order to mitigate what's happening right now. She had some good ideas. I'm excited about that, and I'm feeling much more hopeful than I was before that meeting. But I think that there really is a threat here that if we're not able to turn back on this voucher system, our housing programs are very much at risk because we don't have another source of income to support what we are paying for those master leases. So we're going to keep working on it. As you know, we do have some behavioral health reserves that we're able to continue to use to support this as we're beginning to sort of what kind of feels like cobble together a plan until we see less restriction around these vouchers. So the other thing is just an increased acuity of our clients. I know Commissioner Sterritt's heard a lot about this as we have conversation. It has resulted in a number of things. I think it creates a lot of challenge for our staff who are trying to provide care for these individuals. And it creates challenge in just managing and keeping them engaged. It creates fear around our staff if they're having struggles, feeling safe working with certain individuals. And at the end of the day, it's also creating a lot of strain from a financial standpoint on just our buildings and equipment. It's not unusual for us to have regular occurrences of holes in our walls, things being torn off the shelves, things like that. So it is challenging. We're thinking, we've done a lot of new training for our staff. We've put in a lot of new protocols in terms of how we want them to be reacting when that situation is escalating. I think we have historically and still do have staff who are always so willing to jump in and help out in situations and are really good at de-escalating individuals. And we're finding that there are times where the direction to our staff is, yes, you're really good at that, and let's make sure that before it gets to the point of too high of escalation, that you're moving yourself behind the locked doors, clearing lobbies, things like that. So we will still continue to problem solve around this. We're working really closely with staff to make sure that they're able to share their ideas on how best to stay safe, whether they're in the community or in our clinic as well. But we just continue to see this over the last 3 years. It's just continued to escalate. And then the other challenge that we're really having right now is our management to staff ratios. We have astronomically high staff ratios, I think really in any setting, but specifically in settings where we are having the type of work that we do that is not project-based. It's not day-to-day project-based where you can have check-ins. It is real-time. I need support for X, Y, or Z, need guidance because this is a new critical situation. And right now we have some staff to management ratios that are in the 17, 18 staff per supervisor. And we're finding that that is just not sustainable. It's not sustainable for staff because they're not getting their needs met. It's not sustainable for our supervisors and our managers who are spread far too thin. And then at the end of the day, that all trickles down to the clients and the people we serve. So we have a plan in place and have strategically added supervisors over the course of the last 4 budget seasons. And I won't go into anything that we're doing for this. We'll have plenty of time to talk about upcoming budget, but I really do think that it's critical for us to continue to invest in this if we're going to want to continue to have a stable workforce and be able to have the infrastructure to invest things like our existing fund balance and not miss opportunities that we have before us. So you'll be hearing more about that over the coming years, but it is something I think that's really critical. The other ones are space constraints. The great news is that the vacancy rate is down to 11%. The bad news is I literally don't have enough spaces for staff to sit. And that means that we have to manage schedules. So we have some people, we say, you can only be here on these days, and this person is here on this day because they're having to room share, which is not efficient. And it certainly can create some constraints in terms of service delivery as well because of the shifting and movement that we have. So it sort of is a challenge right now. I think that's a much broader conversation that we need to be having.
Can you touch on that just a little bit? Let's be a little bit more specific. Is that more of the public outreach services that we offer? Because I know we just moved 55 to 60 employees into a brand new.
I think it's Evans.
Okay.
Thank you. It's
Okay.
Evans.
It's Evans.
Okay.
It's that
Yep.
area.
And we've started preliminary discussions on how we think expansion
got
should
some
go.
idea.
So, okay.
Yeah.
No.
I just want to make sure because I'm like, wait a second. I want to
Yep.
make sure we're talking about the right thing here because we just moved and okay,
It is. It's our adult behavioral health staff.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the future funding landscape. But if you go to the next slide, I'll talk more specifically about this. So there was a request to talk a bit about the HR1 and Medicaid and how we are seeing existing impacts and what we're thinking may come down in future and how we're planning for that. So really, the big change, there was a lot in HR1. The things that impact us directly are anything that changes anything related to Medicaid. So the big things that we're watching for right now that we're anticipating that begin at the end of this calendar year are really around eligibility requirements to increase the frequency of eligibility. And for some people, that frequency will be every 6 months. They'll need to demonstrate that they are still eligible for the Oregon Health Plan. And while I don't think anyone wants necessarily people on the health plan that don't qualify, I think there's a lot of concern that the paperwork itself will present a barrier in terms of people turning it in on time and losing the benefits. And one of the things that we have to spend a substantial amount of time on already is people falling off the health plan, even though they're still eligible, and we have to help them get back on. And then it creates this billing cycle that's really challenging for this. And we're expecting that to increase. So we're imagining that certainly there'll be administrative work that has to happen in the state level that's processing those, but we also think that there's going to be a fair amount of increase in administrative work that we're having to do to monitor that, both to support people to maintain their health plan benefits when they're eligible, as well as on the back end to manage the billing that will be, we'll have a lot more denials that we have to go back and claim, and all. It's just one of those processes that's already in existence, but we think it'll just exacerbate. And then the other piece is, of course, proving work and volunteer hours. There are a lot of carve-outs for this in terms of people with disabilities and individuals who are caregivers for people who are under 14 years old. And there's some of those carve-outs. But I think the big challenge for us is that the way that our CCO contract is it's on a per member per month. So it doesn't matter if those individuals remain eligible for our services, as many of the clients we currently have are, say, have a qualified disability. But the sheer fact that our contract is based on Medicaid membership in Yamhill County, we anticipate seeing a decrease based on that. The kicker is, even though we will we anticipate about a 20% decrease in Medicaid membership, which will result in decreased funding. We, as the community mental health program through Oregon statute, still has a requirement to serve individuals. So what we're anticipating is to see the same service level need and expectation with decreased funding, which is unfortunate, but we are working through a lot of projections and modeling right now. We've done a lot of that to prepare for the budget that you will see come before you during the budget presentation with the budget committee around, and we can talk through how we're modeling that to account for what will be half of this upcoming budget year falling within this category of where we begin to see decreases. Happy to answer any questions about that if there are any. Okay.
I don't have any questions about that. I have other questions when you're finished,
Okay.
though.
I've got one more slide just because I really
Yeah.
wanted to end on something positive after talking about the budget. So some highlights coming up. We are so excited about the 8-plex that will be beginning. Well, we're already working with the contractor. They're in the permitting process, doing all of those pieces, and we anticipate getting occupancy in November, which will be really exciting. We already know that this will be utilized immediately. We're working with the management team and the staff who will be overseeing this complex with all of the programmatic pieces to make sure that by that November date, we are ready to hit the ground running. So very exciting. We also have a nutrition summit coming up in May. I can send more information out about that. So excited about this. We started this planning months and months ago, and we hit the pause button for a little bit because there was concern around funding. And then after the beginning of the year, felt comfortable that we had the funding that we needed to be able to pursue it. So we're really excited. And this summit will be open to community members. We'll be looking at schools, healthcare providers, and really anyone in the community who's interested at looking at the nexus between nutrition and behavioral health. And we're really, really excited about that. We're able to use our opioid settlement prevention dollars to put that on, which is really exciting. So if you remember, there were opioid settlement dollars that came directly to the county, and then there was a smaller a one-time set of funds that came specifically to public health for preventative activities. And we were able to get the support of OHA to use it for this, and we're very, very excited. And lastly, there continues to be support for community behavioral health, certified community behavioral health clinics, or CCBHCs. This is really important because as we're seeing the funding landscape change significantly, this provides an additional match that goes, it's state funds that get matched to federal funds to draw down really a wrap payment for individuals we see. This is in addition to Medicaid payment, and it allows us to provide a lot of what are not traditionally covered Medicaid services. So the care coordination, case management, and support of individuals in our system. So there continues to be strong state and federal support for this. And I think this is going to be a really critical funding stream for us as we navigate the next coming years.
How do you see that offset in the 20% decline?
So it's a great question. So we can only collect the wrap payment on individuals with Medicaid. So we will see a decrease in the number of those payments that we can collect, but still that payment helps provide a pretty significant cushion for us, even with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
How many of the Section 8 housing freeze, how many of those units do we have that are vacant now?
Yeah, right now, the only vacancies we have are in the Sheridan complex. And we have, let's see,
Roughly
I would say in the 20s.
in the
And I
20s?
can get a firm number for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that complex is not much larger than that, correct? Or
It is
60?
63.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 30%.
Mhm.
And then the vacancy rate, 11%, you said that those are largely what positions you see?
Yes. So largely those are therapists and some nurses. We have a smaller pool of nurses, so the percentage of that, that can skew the percentage. But the positions we continue to struggle to fill are master's level therapists, nurses, and anyone in management, so managers and supervisors.
And is that a pay problem? Is that where
I
are we?
think it's probably a handful of things. I think with our clinical staff, when we've done the latest market look, I think we are fairly competitive in terms of those positions. I think what is our big challenge, though, is because we have some of these vacancies, the caseloads are challenging.
Yeah.
They're challenging in terms of the acuity level, but then the sheer number is difficult too. So I think that's it. I do think with our management positions, our supervisors and managers, it is pay. And I'll give an example of that. We recently promoted one of our staff who is amazing, and I'm so happy to have her. She's our latest nursing supervisor through public health. When she took the promotion, with that increased liability and responsibility and oversight and work, she received an extra 42 cents an hour for that. And we're grateful she did it. And we know that there are many people who are not up for that.
You just answered my next question. And that ratio, the 17-1, what would you like it? Where would you like it to be? And obviously, if management, the compression rate is not great, you know, where that 17-1, where would you be? Where's
That's
healthy?
ideal. Yeah. I think in our areas where it's largely project-based work, and we do have some of those, I would like to aim for 1 to 10. In the areas that is the more clinical type work, but general like outpatient behavioral health, I think 1 to 8. And I think on our crisis services, a minimum of 1 to 8, if not something closer to 1 to 5.
I think that's all I had. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I'll jump in. First of all, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you and your team do. I don't think folks realize that the higher acuity patients are really, can be not only, I hate to use the word challenging because they can be downright dangerous. And yet we have people who have made the commitment to work in behavioral health. So thank you for that. So in terms of the behavioral workforce issues, what is the comparison? Because I know statewide, the governor has really tried to address this. This has been a hard, statewide, this has been an issue. So how would you compare our vacancies with what's going on in the rest of the state?
I think right now we're pretty on par. I think this continues to be a struggle everywhere. And I don't know of a single entity that is not struggling to find and hire master's level clinicians.
Okay, a couple of other things. Just for folks who are not aware of the fact that the oversight is pretty amazing, you know, the Mental Health Disabilities, Developmental Disabilities Advisory Council, whenever there's a complaint, whenever there's a concern, it is being addressed by multiple different disciplines. And I see that firsthand. So I want to say thank you for that. Have there been any staffing cuts? Have you had to cut any positions
In behavioral health?
in anything across your portfolio of services?
Yeah, so not this, well, at the beginning of this fiscal year, we made some structural changes that resulted in several layoffs. I would say that those were really based on some programmatic needs in terms of what that looks like. None of those were specific to any sort of behavioral health direct services.
Okay, so we're not seeing like wholesale staffing cuts. So capacity.
And I'm not anticipating any now, given the budget we'll plan to present.
Okay, great. The behavioral health access improvements, can you just share a little bit about that? Because I think it's really encouraging for people to know just the lengths that behavioral health systems have gone through to make sure everybody gets seen.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we have in place is that anyone who walks through the door can get immediate access to screening. And this is really important because we want to make sure that anyone who is at high risk to harm, that we are wrapping supports around them as best we can, as quickly as possible. And so after that happens, then they can really triage, and that's what it allows us to do. But really, we've switched to a system that allows for more walk-in access. And so we've just been able to open up our slots and think differently about how we are staffing our assessment team to be able to allow that. And so it's just created less of a bottleneck when people come in. I think the other thing that we have done is we have dedicated staff through our Behavioral Health Resource Network funding to be present for any drug and alcohol assessments. So anytime someone walks in and is there for that, we're able to see them right away. And we've been able to, in most cases, also have same-day access to medication-assisted treatment if that is clinically indicated and desired by the person. So those are medications used to help treat often opioid, but also other types of substances like alcohol. And we can see them same day most of the time and get them started on that. That will dramatically increase success rates is what it's shown. It helps curb cravings and also has, once we get them started on the injection, which is generally the typical treatment mechanism, the evidence really shows that in addition to the supports around cravings and relapse, if there is a relapse, there's a protective factor when they have that medication in their system that helps prevent overdose.
Wonderful.
Interesting.
I just want to point out, I don't think people realize the breadth of the work that's done. I've got 23 pages here of all of HHS programs and services, and covers everything from babies before they're born to elderly people to veterans and everybody in between. And on the meetings that I attend, folks are always pointing to Yamhill County as having such a wide breadth of services. So thank you to your team and everybody who's
Yeah.
in the trenches, literally.
Yeah, thank you so much.
On down the lines of all the programs that we do offer, I know we've kind of touched on this before when I have people that reach out to me and not necessarily complain, but ask about services that we offer. Can you explain what we're doing differently throughout the last few years to make sure that we're advertising and making sure that we can get the message out there, what we do have for services?
Yes, absolutely. We have done a number of strategic things. Some have been just increased volume of messaging going out through things like social media. We have created the reference guide that Commissioner Sarah was mentioning that is hopefully really clear, easy to understand language that anyone could understand in terms of what that service looks like, because I know I'm guilty of it too. We start talking in our, jargon and, clinicians speak, and it can be easy to sort of lose track of what we might be talking about. So we've really worked hard to do those types of things. We had the very first what we hope to be an annual HHS resource fair last summer as well. We had good attendance. It was a lot of fun. We're trying to make sure we are at other community events, whether it's the Yamhill County Fair and Rodeo. We've been at the farmers markets and just really realizing that even though resources are tight, there is a necessity for us to have a community sort of presence. And I think that we really lost a lot of that. And so we've been trying to bolster that over the last really 18 months.
Yeah. And I just asked that so the public knows. I've seen it. When I was out at Grand Sharamina handing out food boxes, we had staff there from HHS. Every single car that went by, here's my card. Do you need anything? Here's our services that we provide. And every single person had that hands-on touch from our HHS. So the reason I asked, I want that to be public, that we do, and we strive to make sure that everybody knows that these programs exist the best that we can. The other thing I want to touch on is our community outreach services, and give us a little bit of background on how that's also grown over the last few years and where we're at with it currently.
Absolutely. So we historically had what we call our community outreach and support services, or our COS team, that was the team that filled the obligation we have as a community mental health program to provide 24/7 crisis supports. Because the team at the time was 3 people, what that amounted to was we would have staff on call during non-business hours. Number of things happened that increased the support, the financial support for that. There was increased support from the state and significant increase in support from our CCO and through that CCO contract. And that allowed us to expand that team to 13 people. So we really, truly can operate a 24/7 mobile crisis response, which is really wonderful. And the other thing that has happened is we've had a handful of contracts, such as one with the city of McMinnville, to provide additional supports within the community. And so while it may not be a crisis, we're able to have staff who just have some foot traffic through the downtown area and are there to support anyone and maybe help move them along, or with any luck to our building and into our services if they're not already. Sometimes these are individuals that are well known to us, and we're able to de-escalate them and kind of get them to a more stable place and support them in those ways. So that has been really nice. And it also is a resource to businesses to be able to reach out when something is happening and it doesn't seem like it's what, someone seems like they're in distress, and it's not necessarily something that's escalating to needing law enforcement, but the person's still in distress. So what do you do? And this team has been able to be a resource for them as well, which has been really great.
And again, the reason I bring this one up is I've had firsthand contact with those businesses on Third Street. I've connected them to those services, and they very much appreciate that. Just for that one aspect that here's a number I can call to get some concerns answered of somebody that may need help that's either on the sidewalk or whatever it may be, and it's worked out great for them. One thing I'd like to touch on, the funding that comes through McMinnville, that's some private dollars that end up coming from another group or program, correct?
That is my understanding of how it initiated. I don't know if that is continued to be the case with the latest funding, but yes, you're correct. It was a blending of, I believe, city funds and the private funds.
Okay, cool. I'm going to touch on our move real quick, and what I want to make sure that everybody's aware of is what services now, and I know it's not a lot, but there are some public-facing services that have moved to the new building as of last week
This
or
week.
this week,
Still in
as of this
process.
week. So, and that's fine. So I guess now's the time. Let's make sure everybody knows from this date forward, it's at some of the veteran services now that'll.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
So what has moved? Anything that was formerly over at Kirby, Kirby 1, not public health. Public health is staying, also a Kirby address, but not this one. So anything that was at the original Kirby building is moving over, and that includes our veterans services. So our veterans services officer, we have officers, we have 2, will be located there. So that is where veterans should go if they are looking for their benefit support. Our developmental disabilities team. So anyone who has an appointment with them or is coming to drop off their own paperwork or have conversation about how to access services should go there. Then our third team really doesn't have a lot of foot traffic, but I'll still mention them, is one of our behavioral health teams. They are a community-based team that really support individuals who have generally are older adults and have significant health issues. And so all of their services are largely provided in the home. And so it's a small team of folks that are based in the community, but their actual desks will be located there as well.
And that's
But
Oasis.
I will be over there. So if you're looking for me, that's where I will be.
And Jason.
And Jason and Lane Pendleton Baker, who is our finance manager.
Yeah. I can tell you, construction wise, they hammered down on that one, got it done super
Fast.
quick. And so that's great that we can get another 55 to 60 employees over there. So,
The full second floor is 100% occupied now.
so we're getting there.
Yeah.
All right. Any further questions
I don't think so.
for Director Mann?
No, just thank you, and thank your team. They are sort of the unsung heroes. We only hear about it when there's like a significant issue or something, but they're doing some really, really hard work, and it's getting harder every day. So thank you. And it's pretty impressive that our vacancy rate isn't as high as some other counties. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to the expansion ideas on Kirby. So
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
stay tuned for those.
And I know you and Jason have been spread a little thin lately too, so
Thank
well
you.
done, and thank you for covering that and
Yeah. Appreciate
the
it.
extra work that goes in with covering those vacancies as well. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay. All right, up next, we have our work session. There is none. G is our consent agenda. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
Can I have some questions about number 2?
Okay, so let's remove number 2. I would make a motion to approve G1 and, oh,
That's it.
that is the only one. Make a motion to approve G1. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, that brings us up to G2. Questions?
Yeah, I know that most of that is vehicles, and I'm trying to remember, it was not in the packet, but the mileage rate that we go down, is that 140? 140, and I know that.
Or wrecked.
Wrecked, yes, I have several wrecked vehicles and wrapped up in that one, no pun intended, but I know that that fund is kind of starting to shrink a little bit, and with the need of the sheriff's cars and things, is there?
You can be
Uh,
blunt. It's not kinda. It is.
Yeah.
It's depleted.
Trying to be nice.
Yep.
Is there a reason why we're getting rid of cars at 140? I know I know you guys, the past board has talked about this. I think that we're at a point right now where we kind of have to kind of make a decision to not stop getting rid of.
I think I can help you a little bit on that. So I've asked the same question
Yeah.
because it's a very, very good question. A lot of them have historical maintenance issues, and that
Okay.
really is why they end up going.
And
on the
that's why we're
chopping
getting
block.
rid of
Yep.
more,
It's they're either wrecked or they have historical maintenance that's gonna eat us alive. And
okay,
to kind of combat some of that, the last few vehicles that we brought in were used vehicles.
yeah,
And you'll see them running around. One of them you can't miss. It's a Crown Victoria that we, paid 30 grand for, that it was dang near brand new back in its day, but it will last us forever.
Right,
So
yeah.
instead of spending, I think we're topping out at some of them 80 grand now to be a totally outfitted. So we're addressing that. And then I think kind of some of the recommendations as we proceed.
yeah, that 140 just seems so low, I mean, and I understand that.
You're
that,
You're preaching Commissioner Sterrett's.
You go to
tune.
Newburgh School District and they're still driving square body
Yeah.
Fords, so it's,
Well, between the sheriff's office and Public Works, this is something I bring up every year and go, boy, this seems kind of low mileage. And then they basically talk about the fact that the maintenance is
That's
really
the
what kills us.
But it's also the type of vehicle too, and the wear and tear that goes into those vehicles, especially for the, patrol vehicle.
yeah, I know the patrol vehicles are
Yeah.
something that's a little bit different,
Right.
they ride them hard and,
Right.
that's a different story, but if we're talking about Public Works or something, vehicles, are those getting, closer up into that 200 range or 180 or something?
It's kind of that same deal. We for sure are very, very careful about what we do that maintenance
Yeah.
ratio on them. Is it eating us alive on maintenance? And we have to, for us, we put them to the chopping block.
And there's also a formula that they use because we do pay into the replacement fund for each of these vehicles as soon as they're put into a fleet. And so we
Right.
pay into that. So then there's also that balance about, well, we've got this much saved up for the replacement vehicle and what can we get in return and do that kind of offset. There is a formula that goes into that as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
The 140 isn't a hard rule. There's other things that will have to
There's
go
other
into
things
it.
because we have other vehicles floating around in the fleet that are much older.
Sure.
And facilities have some older vehicles that we'll hold on to and, we try to repurpose those as much as possible.
Yeah.
And that actually brings up a very good point. It's not like a zero, there were some Dodge Chargers that had massive maintenance issues that, they sell for $8 grand because people part them out or whatever. So they're still worth something. It's not zero.
Right. So
But
we
yeah,
get some of it back and plus the replacement fund that we pay into.
Yep.
What hurts is if we have to total the vehicle.
We do.
and it's well in
That's-
advance and we haven't paid into it, and that's where we start taking the hits in the replacement fund.
Well, then I would move approval.
all right.
If you could.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None.
No. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to H1, old business. Consideration approval of a board order and findings in the matter of an application for an outdoor mass gathering permit by Katie Vinson, applicant, approving a special permit for the Wildwood Music Festival at 41100 Tyndall Creek Road, Willamina, Oregon, on June 19th, 20th, and 21st, 2026. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None?
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to other business. I1 is consideration of approval of amendment number 1 to the real estate lease between Yamhill County Health and Human Services and the Housing Authority of Yamhill County Board Order 25-397 to increase rent amounts and extending terms retroactive to March 1, 2026 through February 28th, 2027.
And this is for the Bridges Complex, so I would move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion? None? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. I2 is consideration of approval of amendment number 6 to agreement number 185833 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Health Authority for Public Health Services Board Order 25-269, decreasing funding by $3,350.
I would move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None?
None? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. I3 is consideration of approval of grant agreement number 35711, amendment number 2 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Department of Transportation, ODOT, for 4 Category E1 replacement vehicles, increasing the total project cost from $590,709 to $676,693 and $607,197 in grant funds. Cynthia is here if we have any questions.
I would move approval.
Motion's been made.
If there are questions.
I'm going to have questions on the next one. Motion's been made. Any further questions?
None.
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 All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item I4 is consideration of approval of amendment number 4 to an agreement between Yamhill County Transit and First Transit, Inc., Board Order 20-096 in the not to exceed amount of $5,900,000 retroactive to January 1, 2026 through June 30, 2027. I will have questions on this, Cynthia, if you want to come down.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning and
Morning,
welcome.
Chair, Commissioners.
You want to give us a little bit of background on this? I
Sure.
have a feeling, but maybe give us a bullet point version.
Yes, I will. As you know, the contract we're currently under actually ended in December, so the part of this amendment is to retroactive to January 1st, and this would be an 18-month agreement through June 30th, 2027. And it does hold the line of what was in Amendment 3. It's less than a 1% increase from where we were. I don't remember how much we talked about this in the past, but I had back in August or September, I had sent a request to First Transit to sharpen their pencil and come back with the best possible price they could, because I knew that their costs have been escalating quite significantly. It took a long time. That's why this is taking quite a time to come to you. I didn't really get a proposal until December. And unfortunately, we did go back and forth, and I think this is the best that I could get. I tried my darndest to figure out how to get it to be less, but we did hold the line because some of the initial proposal was even more than what this one is. So the good news is it's about the same, but we will have to, be cautious over the next year and
Based on the last contract, how much of an increase is this?
it's less than 1%.
Okay.
In 26, and it's less than 1% in 27. In actual dollar increases for the maximum, it is $13,087 in 2026 from June to December, and it's $177,480 from January to June in 20.
And is this with, on top of that, any reduction in services? Because I know when we did this last time, even though the contract price stays pretty close the same, the how we're trying to save on the cost is to reduce either
Yes.
routes or service hours. So where are we at with service hours now?
So what this agreement is for 34,000 annual hours of service. The good news in the key points to really highlight is that we got three important concessions, I guess I would call it. A vacancy credit for any management positions that are not filled within 30 days. So that was added to Amendment 4. So
Is that retro or not?
it starts January 1st. Yeah, same as the contract. I wish it would, I tried to get it.
Oh, yeah,
back,
because
but yeah,
how many, I mean, we have at least one management
Yes.
position that was
we do.
months long.
Yes, for quite a few months. So they agreed to give us a credit for the actual payroll benefits and overhead. Second thing is that we, we had written them a letter with a number of things that we wanted them to resolve. And so there's some areas that address that highlighted in the amendment on page 2 at right near the bottom of the page where it's like contract managers will be available all hours and for any kind of mention, not that they're not, but it sort of puts it into the contract. Also that they have documented training in place and that they will meet with us monthly to discuss cost and performance reviews. So that just sort of, it's not that those things weren't in the original contract, but it kind of calls it out and says, hey, and then they're getting us a corrective action plan for all the elements that we had highlighted. But the most important thing is the plus or minus 15% that you see in the word memo and in the amendment. What that means is that they gave us a fixed price in Exhibit F for variable rate and for fixed rate. And in the past, if we reduced hours, then the rate went up. If you increase hours, then the rate would go down. Obviously, we're not going to increase hours. We've already been working on a plan to do some service adjustments that would reduce hours. But the problem is when in our current, prior to this agreement, if we reduced it, it didn't save us very much money because then the price would go up. So this is good. We can reduce hours up to 5,100 annual hours without the price increasing. So that's a fairly big win, actually. And we already do have a plan as part of the public outreach for the fair policy. We were going to share all the different various service adjustments that we plan to make. I may do a few more adjustments than what I originally planned, but I think the good news is that the way that we've arranged the service adjustments, we can talk about that at another time and get into more detail about that. I think, it's probably getting close to us having a work session wouldn't be a bad idea to go through a lot of the more details. The good news is with this agreement is it really doesn't, it's almost the same, less than 1% in price of the maximum compensation for them. And the fact that we have the vacancy credits and this 15% window that we can, reduce hours without it
Right.
costing more. Those are kind of the key factors.
Do we want to try to hit that work
Benefits.
session before retirement? Are you coming on after to do that or?
I think we should do it as.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll be
Yes.
opposed.
Yes, okay, because that's coming up real quick.
I mean, how soon do you think you'd be ready? I don't know if the
I think-
advisory committee has had some discussions. or
We've
has
had some, we were
recommendations?
planning to have another Yamhill County Transit Advisory Committee, is it the 4th Thursday?
Yeah, something.
I think it's the 4th
yeah.
Thursday of March.
Yeah,
I-
in like 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yes, 3 weeks. We should do it in March. I'm thinking the 3rd week or the 4th
Okay.
week, either one would work. I mean, I'm willing to, it's not like I'm going to dash out the door. I mean, I would hope that we can finish.
And
up
we,
over
we
the
want to be
weekend, but
respectful though and
yeah.
make sure that we,
No, it's fine.
if we have time, let's get that on the calendar and
Okay,
get.
so we'll target the 3rd session in March.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay,
Okay.
That's a week after next.
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah,
keep forgetting
it's
we're-
soon.
we're
It
in
goes by
March.
so fast.
Yeah.
I have a
Any other questions?
question. Yes. The corrective action plan, is there a reason why it took longer than expected? And what is the anticipated savings from that?
I don't know if I have the answer to why it took so long, because it sort of was in their hands and they've gone through some changes and I can't tell you why they didn't. I bothered them every day. They were supposed to have it to us by October and it took like 2 more months and I don't have a good answer for that. I think there's going to be cost savings in the sense of that we have this fixed rate and that we can reduce hours where we need to, and that will save us money. But there may be some other opportunities. I think it's more going to be like in efficiencies. I can't really give you a bottom line number on what that's going to be. It's kind of, I think they're supposed to get us the final corrective action plan by the end of March. And I think we're going to be able to see some efficiencies, but I can't really tell you exactly what those are going to be at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
None.
Comments?
No comments. No.
All right. I would make approval of item I4. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for coming,
Thank you.
Cynthia.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Item I5 is discussion of EDA disaster recovery grant match funds brought to you by Commissioner Johnston. And today we have joining us McCray Carmichael and Jeff from Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. And just a little bit of background from what I know, and then you guys can correct or fill in from there. This is something Joy started quite a few years ago. Never quite got traction and came before us. Now it's being reignited, and McCray has started the conversation over again. And if you can fill in from there, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us. McCray Carmichael, Interim Executive Director and the Community and Economic Development Director at the COG. This is Jeff Hildebrand, our Commercial Loans Officer. So maybe about two years ago, Joya reached out to Jeff to talk to him about revolving loan funds that you all had that had gone kind of stale, weren't being used, and to talk about how we do lending over at the COG and just potential opportunities. And Jeff, I'll let him get into more detail about that and how that relates to this after I give the introduction. Jeff worked with her and had some programming ideas, and ultimately she made the determination last year not to make any more effort with it at that time, and is no longer with the county. That said, EDA disaster recovery dollars were announced in the fall for Yamhill County for the windstorm of 2023. So out of the Department of Commerce, several, billions of dollars are currently available nationally to be eligible if you're within the EDA disaster recovery. So we've been talking with cities about potential opportunities to look for these funds. There's revolving loan fund dollars that are available. You can apply for up to $20 million, but it requires a 20% match. So we were like, well, where do we get this match? So we were thinking about those funds that we knew you all had. So this would be for commercial lending in Yamhill County. So we've been looking at where the opportunity was, and we thought potentially that $200,000 that is available at the county could serve as a match, and wanted to talk with you. So I reached out to Commissioner Johnston about the opportunity for that, and he invited us to come and just tell you more about the application we're currently working on. The thing is, like, we're ready as soon as we get that match to submit. That said, the county could we could hand over our application. You all could be the applicant for that. Also, there's lots of ways to skin that part of it and get through it, but we're ready to make the application. We just have to get the match part. So with that, Jeff can tell you a little bit about what the lending is, or would you like to learn? Do you have questions before?
So yeah, so I contacted Joy this morning. She was so nice graceful to answer the phone and answer some questions that I had. But anyway, so just a little, I think maybe even going back further, and maybe Jeff might know some background history, or you can start filling in. But we're talking funding that came to this county back in 1986.
Yeah, community development block grant funds.
Yeah.
And we've been carrying it on our books since then.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So
Just over $200,000.
Joy had this all in motion and then retired. And I think there's a couple other key factors. It definitely, at least after talking to Joy this morning, it was definitely something that she wanted to see come to fruition, to use these dollars for something productive. And I explained to her what was going to be going on this morning. She was very, very happy with the conversations that we were going to have. She does have an email file that has quite a few of these documents that go back to the history of it, but it sounds like you have most of that, but it's June to July 1986 is the origination of it. And then she had conversations with COG and also with Arthur Chaput through Business Oregon, because I think that's where those funds ended up coming from originally, was through EDA or Business Oregon, if I remember right.
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay.
I don't have it in front of me, so yeah.
There was a question at one point because nobody knew where they came from.
Mhm.
And it was like, we've got this money
Oh,
and
there,
Yeah.
It-
Joy was telling me there was a board order to bring the money in, and then she sees the meeting for the very next time to have discussions on what the money should be used for. She never could find any minutes confirming of what it was supposed to be
Yeah,
used for.
and we've had the funds, you know, and honestly, you know, the file that Joya has is the file that I gave her that, you know, in reviewing that, it's a file that I've had on, that Laura Schauble had,
Right.
that John Krozik had, you know, kind of the line of succession, that we've had those files. And we've had agreements with COG, to facilitate if we, you know, and I can think of once or twice that we've had inquiries about accessing those funds or having those loans, but I know in the years past, there was challenges around the interest rate or the, you know, associated with that, or it just didn't come to fruition, or folks were thinking they were looking for grants, not necessarily
Right,
for a
give
loan,
outs, yeah.
you know,
Right.
so that's why we've seen little to no activity with those funds, and that's why we've had that in our economic development fund. The entire time I've been an administrator,
Yeah.
deputy, you know, for years. I don't remember the last time. It hasn't been in my, you know, 15 years that I've been an admin that I haven't seen that. So,
the interest rate was not competitive, so there really wasn't any, there was really nothing that was attractive.
and it's also hard because we usually do a grant program. We've done grant programs in the past, and I think most folks, if they have a choice between a
Yeah.
loan and a grant, they, you know, obviously
Sure.
I'd
Sure.
rather get a grant.
Yeah.
You know, so that can also be self-defeating to a certain degree.
So Jeff, with your work with Joya over the past years, you got anything to add to that, or?
Well, we had several iterations. I wrote different loan policies based on things that she was thinking of that would fit for Yamhill County. I think what I saw when this deal came up for these disaster funds was potentially a way to leverage that 200,000 up to $1 million
Mhm.
was my initial thought. And could be leveraged beyond that, but I think right now I was looking at just if we get this to $1 million, it makes a lot more sense as far as getting funds out to small businesses. I talked about a number of things with her based on making these loans to people that aren't considered quote unquote bankable. And this is due to businesses being less than 3 years old, looking at expansion, or even leveraging some of these funds even further by working with, you know, various commercial conventional lenders in the area, where they would provide like 50% of a loan program, and then this could be leveraged on top of that, which is what we do with a lot of our revolving loan funds now, is work with lenders and expand it. So get more capital out to those businesses and get banks comfortable with a situation that they would say, hey, we only want to lend 50% on this, but this equipment's going to cost more than the borrower has equity. They don't have 50% equity. If we could do like another 20 or 30% of that, it could make something happen. So the loan programs that Joy and I discussed, I would write up a policy and procedures. She would look at it and change things. And Joy just didn't make things drop. I ended up going through some health issues last year and was out for about 3 months. By the time I came back and got caught up, Joy was ready to retire. So I think that's really kind of what happened. It just kind of expired and ran out. But I still see through this a bigger opportunity to leverage those funds at no cost to the county and making things so it's more available to small businesses that are domiciled within, headquartered and domiciled and do business within the county, or businesses that are based in the county and may go outside for some other works, like say small construction and contracting firms, things like that. So it's really comes down to we would have to design a program that fits with the requirements to get the money, but also design a program that fits the needs of what the county economic development wants to see.
Right. And I'd want to, and I mean, I'm sure all of us could agree with this, the least restrictions as possible so that we have a broad scope. Because I can think of many a times in years past where when I was young and trying to start businesses farming, a lot of farming activities are non-conforming to a conventional bank. And it was a struggle to find a loan to even just, you know, go buy a piece of equipment or whatever it may be, because it was non-conforming and conventional banks just, they weren't used to farms and they just didn't want anything to do with it. They'd rather just go with the 100-lot subdivision. And I think if we can make this the least restrictive possible, it's going to be great for the businesses in our area.
Right, and also make it with a reasonable rate of interest. You'd mentioned the interest rates typically.
I'm going to stop you for 1 second there.
Oh.
You're in trouble.
Sorry about that.
Guys out trying to do his job.
All right, I'm getting phone calls from judges.
We're going to reschedule that one. So go ahead. Sorry about that.
Typically on our loans that we've been making the last few years, we look at about a 1.5% loan fee. We look at costs for documentation expenses that run around $500 to $750 per loan. Out-of-pocket costs such as credit reports, lien searches, and whatnot. Typically, our interest rates are generally come in at a fixed rate for the life of the loan at somewhere around prime or maybe a half over prime, locking it in at that, and then setting within the program a floor and a ceiling, because you're getting this money. You've already got a portion of it. It's not like you're looking to make a fortune on it, but you're looking for somebody to pay reasonable amount back, because it is a revolving loan fund. Once that loan's paid back, then you've got more money to re-lend at that point. You know, you try to secure things as best you can. But a lot of these small businesses, everything they've got's invested in that business. They might have a little bit of equity in a home, but maybe not. But so you look at it, they're typically a higher risk. I went back 2 years ago and looked at the Council of Governments loan record, and we had not had a loan loss in 10 years. Now, we'd had some businesses that weren't successful, but we worked with the borrowers to get out of a bad situation. And a lot of most of our loans are limited to about $200,000 maximum. So you're looking at loans probably in the range of $50,000 to $200,000, with the average size being probably $75,000 to $100,000. So you're talking multiple loans to a number of small businesses on that basis.
What would you, as far as restrictions, and if they're emergency disaster funds, is it going to be restricted to emergency disaster, or does that cap come off and
It's just revolving loan funds.
Okay,
Like it has
okay.
no restriction to, it doesn't have to be tied. Like in the same way for some of your cities within Yamhill County, we're preparing applications for like infrastructure that are more tied to disaster recovery and emergency.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is revolving loan funds. It is.
and what's the cost to manage this program through the COG?
There's a couple of ways we can look at it. I quoted at one point, we talked about Council of Governments just doing the underwriting, which was our hourly rate, which was about, I think at the time, $160 an hour,
Yeah.
something like that. Then out-of-pocket costs for documentation and whatnot. And then the county making the decision for approval or decline on it, and then booking the loan and monitoring themselves, or having the Council of Governments basically control the funds, have it go through our current loan approval board, which there's a representative from Yamhill County on that board, Truman Stone. And basically they look at, it has to fit the parameters of the program, has to make sure that all the boxes are checked and it fits. And we basically just book the loan at that point. And if we've got the funds making the loan, there's no additional cost to the county. The only time there's additional cost to the county is if we're not holding those funds, we're not managing the loan, that goes to the county, that we just charge for our service time that's spent.
I believe that's what our last agreement, I'm trying to remember. I haven't looked at the agreement. I think
Yeah.
I think it's since expired and probably due for an update or
Right.
a review.
Yeah.
But historically, we've had an IGA in place
Okay.
for that.
Well, you are currently our member.
Right.
So
Right.
by all means, like, if you wanted to go about the mechanism of you all keeping the funds and just using our Jeff to do the loans itself, you have that service available to you.
I would be kind of along the lines, I almost want like to pick pieces of the last two examples and make a third, but I think we can discuss that later. I think what we're
Right.
looking for now is just kind of a general consensus to maybe have 2 or 3 different examples come before us. Is there any restrictions on the growth funds from once we get the 200 plus 800? If that's sitting in an investment fund growing while it's in a revolving?
Yeah.
Is there any restrictions on
Oh, what it could be used for?
the growth? So the interest rate,
interest?
let's just say it grows at 4.5% or whatever it may be. That has to stay within that revolving
Yeah.
loan fund?
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
but it will grow
yeah.
Yeah.
as long as those funds are in there. Not that I mean, the purpose for them is to go out to businesses and help them, but
Yeah,
I'm just saying you're always going to have some sort of cushion in that. And I just want to make sure that we ask the question of what the restrictions would be on that.
yeah, it's restricted to the revolving loan fund, to lending.
But it is growing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you got?
No, well, I'm not prepared.
Okay,
so-
that's fine.
I mean, so where we're at is, like I said, we're ready. I've been working on this application and just like, we'll work at it and figure out where we can get the match. And Jeff and a program manager at the COG were like, what about that 200,000? That is what a match is meant to be. Like,
Right.
that's perfect. So, we ultimately would need a letter of support. I understand that you all would be willing to commit to the match as part of the application. We can come back with more information. We can come back with that letter of support. You all could decide to say, move forward with your application and we can be working through. We don't have to accept the funds. You know, if
Yeah.
we were awarded, we can just say, we're not in the right place right
Yeah.
now. We can't do it. Like, if we can't come to agreement of the terms of how you'd want to have the lending go.
Or if the approval came back and there was something in there that you felt was too restrictive, just walk away.
Yeah, we're not committing. We're just applying
Yeah.
at this point.
Questions?
So you have several currently operating revolving loan programs?
Yes.
We do.
And what's the distinction between this and those?
This would be restricted only to Yamhill County for the parameters as set forth in the loan policy for this fund. Because the 200,000 is from your dollars.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
And so
Oh.
this fund needs to be structured around what Yamhill County wants to see for economic development, small business. It
So-
could be requirement for employment goals, other loan or economic growth goals, et cetera. That can all be built in.
And basically you would be administering this, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Ken's like, whew.
Well, it could
Well,
be
we have
different
options.
options.
Or, yeah.
But yeah,
we have
I-
different-
talk about what options.
Okay.
are
But
there.
if you want to make that a motion.
Yeah. I can tell you that I'm definitely leaning towards that. We have a membership with them. COG has the bandwidth to do
Right,
this.
right.
I truly believe it should be managed through them.
And historically, we've had this relationship. We just haven't had utilization of the funds.
And
Yeah,
tradition.
I'm sorry. I'd like to offer, like, with our revolving loan funds, businesses within Yamhill County could currently access what we have and make an
Yes.
application. The benefit of this to Yamhill County is that this is only for Yamhill County
Right.
residents, right?
Mhm.
From Marion Polk, they have a project. If our funds are, if we couldn't fund it because we were depleted, this is just for Yamhill
Right.
County residents.
And to give you an idea, since January 1st, I've booked 4 small business loans for the Council of Governments, and one of them is in downtown McMinnville.
Mhm.
And it was for $180,000. So we do actively do a lot of business in Yamhill County, which is, there's a lot of stuff going on here.
Yep.
It's a nice place to do business.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
I think all of mine have been touched on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys coming.
Okay.
Thank you
I'm
very
sorry,
much.
Is there, what would
Is
you
there
like to
consensus
follow?
to
Yeah.
proceed?
Yes, but I have one more person I want to question.
Okay.
Interrogate.
And it's not you two.
Okay.
And I really appreciate you guys coming this morning. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
and I have a gift basket for you too for the dinner tonight.
Okay.
So don't get too, we might, let's take a
Yeah.
5-minute break when we get to the public hearing and so I can go get McCray that.
We can't split it on the way back to the office.
Well, whatever. I don't know what happens when you leave, so.
The honor system.
John Olson, do you have time to come up and answer a couple questions? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I just have one. We have
Day in the
a
life.
rough need known from COG, which is kind of a regional, but what do you think, like in our area, being an area, MAC chamber area, what do
Yeah.
you think of this?
No, I think funding is one of the biggest questions we get from entrepreneurs and startups in our community all the time. McMinnville and Yamhill County has one of the most robust startup and entrepreneur communities going on right now. We host a monthly coffee with them, and every single month we're talking to them about funding. And so being able to say there's a dedicated fund for Yamhill County businesses for a revolving loan fund can be a game changer for them. MEDP and the chamber are co-hosting an access to capital event later this year. So if we can get that agreement lined up, that's a new offering to be able to talk to them about. So this can be a big difference for businesses in Yamhill County.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Any more questions for John?
None.
No, thank you. And
All right,
thank you,
thank you,
Kara,
sir.
for
Thank you,
bringing
guys.
this to us.
And thanks for coming almost every single Thursday too, so.
As always.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and the new one, we'll actually have a camera on the audience so people can actually see and prove that you're here, so. All right, with that, is there a general consensus?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And thank you guys for coming. Let's see where we're at here.
Walk on?
I have a walk on, yeah. And sorry for the late one on this. This was a quick one, and I know that we 2 weeks ago or sent, so I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to send a letter for the senators. And this is essentially the same exact project, but we're asking the congresswoman for, and there's smaller district. She gets to advocate pretty hard. The rules about what and who are slightly different between both sides of the house there, senators and congresswomen. So I provided a letter really quickly, just so I know sometimes it's more powerful for us to do the three of us together. So if you would like to, if you guys had the time to read it, I know I sent it early this morning, but you guys would like to sign on to this, or you guys can send your own if you'd like as well.
So I thought direction was when this came before us before that we were individually doing. So do you have an individual?
I had
That
sent,
was-
this was already sent.
Yeah, that was for, that only went to the senators, to the CIP project.
This,
I understand, but we
this went
haven't,
to both.
but we haven't, maybe you sent it to Brandon as well, but we have not applied for that yet. We are
No.
doing that to.
I sent this, it was to both the senators and Congresswoman Andrea Salinas, and it went to Brian because there was a timeline on that.
Yeah,
Is that
so
someone-
Brian submitted to the senators that letter, and he submitted one from me. I don't know if you had a chance to do one or not.
I have my own in front of me. So what's your time frame on this?
The deadline is Sunday night.
Of course it is.
Yeah, this was a quick one. It was, they kind of last minute dropped it right
Okay.
after, and
So I read through yours. I have my own. If we want to read through them real quick, and then we can decide which ones we want to do.
I have yours as well.
You,
Yeah, I have a copy of both.
do you have mine, Commissioner Stewart?
I do. I do.
And I
So-
think just for some context as
Mhm.
well from Brandon and Gustavo and Karina, that really they are looking for projects that will affordability for Oregonians. And, you know, as county, we don't deal a lot with infrastructure and so on, you know, water rates and so on. So we don't have any big projects. They want projects that are around, you know, $1 to $4 million. The Congresswoman wants projects that are $1 to $4 million.
Sure.
And So really how this is becoming affordable for Oregonians. And we are, this project is $2.3 million that we're submitting for. And it has to get done. It's not like we can wait another 10 years to do it.
And we
So-
know that this is a drop in the bucket compared to what we actually need to get for our radio tower. So I don't think, at least for me, I'm not arguing on the project.
Yeah.
I'm arguing on more of just, and not really not arguing,
No, it's-
concerned about the verbiage in the letter. It's kind of just has that, for me, in my opinion, and this is not taking shots at anybody. I know we've had this conversation before. Every time that we all three have our letters that come in, and sometimes we end up doing our own, or sometimes we try to come around one, but trying to keep it, the verbiage on some of the words that you include in it, like backbone, or making it seem like our cities are really struggling, which we all have different lenses on what we look through. And so I try to stay positive. I feel like the vibe from the letter is just a little bit more of a aggressive, we need to get this done because, everything's falling apart
Sure.
and we need duct tape to hold it all together. Even though we're right at the precipice and we're buying parts from eBay,
yeah.
but we have been slowly funding the
Yes,
tower. I mean, just internally, last year, we put almost $1 million
right.
from two different funds into our tower system. So we're getting there. This is another piece to that.
Right.
And so I want to kind of have more of that positive vibe. And so I feel like my letter has that, and I'm going to promote my letter. So what do you guys think?
I'm just looking at, I had actually submitted a letter that had a lot of the same elements in terms of calling out the importance of operability with bordering agencies and EMS and that type of thing. So I do think the sky is falling is not a good approach. I think we need to be pointing out that, yes, we're making this work, but it is just overwhelming financially. So I appreciate the tone of your letter, so I would recommend that one, and knowing that we all have our own take on it, but.
Or we can stick with just individual, how we kind of were headed down the path based on last week already.
Yeah, and I'm fine. I do think it's more powerful that we, are united in one letter rather than our own individuals. Yeah, so I don't have a problem one way or the other. I do think that there is a little bit of urgency being in these meetings with this, and so that is why mine has that language of urgency and needing to get it done, because this doesn't just go to the Congresswoman, it's being presented to the committees that are approving it.
Right.
So, yes, the Congresswoman is, and her field team understands that, your letter a little bit more, but we are essentially presenting to people who have never heard of Yamhill County and don't know that this is a huge issue. So my letter is really based on the conversations with the field reps and how they've given me, wisdom or advice on how to approach it. So,
And
have-
with,
Yeah, I was just going to say, having sort of been in this arena for over a decade where we really did sort of pound the same drum, this has been an ongoing ask, an ongoing concern. And I think I just don't want to be negative. And I know that the role of the committee that's going to, the Congresswoman is not going to get this on her desk until it's all been vetted and approved and looked at by a number of different people. I don't think there's anything wrong with going with the chair's letter. To me, it's perhaps a different tone that might be more successful, but that's, so.
are you good with that?
yeah.
I want you to be comfortable with it. I mean, it's a letter.
No, like I
The
said,
concern is to
I-
make sure the board signs
Yeah.
on to a letter and.
No, I want to be sure that we are in agreement on everything, and I can be fine with a more upbeat tone. I do think that this is somewhat urgent, though. So
Absolutely. And they
more
always
urgency,
are.
yes.
It's like grant funding. It's just like, oh, hey, it's open, and oh, by the way, it's due Thursday.
It's due Thursday. Yes, this was a rush job, and I think we found out about it on Friday last week or something, or Thursday, and here we are. So.
No, this has been going on for years, and I really appreciate you kind of continuing on with it and having those relationships with our federal delegations is very important, and I appreciate
Yeah,
that. So
yeah, I'm happy to sign on to your
Okay.
your letter.
So I would make a motion that we put my letter on the BOC letterhead with our signatures on it and send it on to Andrea Salinas.
Yes.
Well, send it to Brian.
Brian,
Yeah.
everybody's supposed to go to. Bailey will get with you and
She'll get it done.
she's awesome.
She always does.
So that's just, we just need consensus on that, or do you need?
No, I mean,
a vote.
because we're gonna,
motion.
you're
Yeah.
signing
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
so-
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Sterrett.
Thank you,
That
Bailey.
gets rid of our walk on. We're going to take a 8.5 minute break and we'll be back for J1.
8.5 minutes.
Got it home.
No. And you
Going to make sure I see where we're opening up. There we go. All right. All right, I'm going to open up this public hearing. It's item J1 at 11:32 on March 5th. You all right over there? Okay. All right. Okay. And we're continuing this from February 5th at the point of staff recommendations. It is docket number P-10-25, an appeal of the planning director's approval of a request to partition approximately 37-acre property into two parcels of approximately 2.0, parcel number 1, and 35 acres, parcel number 2. This partition application is possible due to a Measure 49 final order and home site authorization E122333, approved by the Oregon Department of Land and Conservation and Development. This request involves a transfer of the development rights granted by Measure 49 Final Order E122333 from tax lot 3210-02400 to the subject lot 2323-02000 to facilitate the clustering of Measure 49 dwellings. The applicant is Del Boca Vista LLC. The appellant is Robert S. Jennings. Ken Friday. Welcome back from vacation, or Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will start off by noting that a partition request using the clustering option permitted by Measure 49 was new for our office. Due to the newness of this request, the applicant and planning staff had multiple meetings and communications with the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And the feedback received by staff and the applicant was generally positive and supportive of the clustering process. It wasn't until this request went to a hearing that DLCD appeared to express concerns regarding this partition. The Measure 49 clustering option is possible if the receiving property is, quote, less suitable, end quote, for farm or forest use. And I want to emphasize the forest use component of the clustering option because during the hearing, much of the focus was given to the suitability of the two lots solely for farm use. However, the applicant and county can evaluate the sending and receiving lots as much for forest use as for farm use. Regardless of whether the county evaluates the request for farm or forest use, neither the administrative rules nor Measure 49 direct local governments to evaluate the soils of either the sending or receiving properties, or really provide any guidance other than one lot being generally less suitable than another. This lack of direct guidance provides the local government leeway in terms of how this suitability standard is applied to a clustering request. For this reason, when we were evaluating the partition, we considered some of the statewide planning goals that we felt were especially relevant. And those included farmland preservation and forest land preservation, goals 3 and 4. But also goal 7, which directs local governments to protect people and property from natural hazards. Both properties have some degree of high-value farmland. Both properties have equally productive forest land. However, the sending property is comprised of steep slopes, which can pose a hazard to people and property more generally, but especially in the event of a wildfire in the area. And the receiving property does not have any identifiable hazard areas. Additionally, the applicant submitted evidence that shows that these steep slopes can provide valuable habitat to wildlife, trees, shrubs, and the receiving property has been dedicated to farm use and does not provide that same sort of habitat. This is why our office initially approved this request, because we viewed the Goal 7 risk as a bit of a tiebreaker, for lack of a better term, when both lots appear to be roughly equal in terms of suitability for farm or forest use. Staff recommends approval of this request with the 8 conditions listed in the staff report and an added 9th condition. And I'm happy to read those if the chair or the commission wishes.
Yes, let's read.
Recommended condition number 1, a final partition plat pursuant to the requirements of the Yamhill County Land Division Ordinance shall be prepared and submitted to the planning director. The final partition plat shall substantially conform to the preliminary map. The Yamhill County Planning Docket number P-10-25 shall appear on the face of the plat. Condition 2, Prior to final plat, partition approval, a survey of parcel number 1 shall be completed by a registered land surveyor pursuant to section 6.120 of the Yamhill County Land Division Ordinance. Condition 3, a site evaluation for a subsurface sewage disposal system shall be approved by the county sanitarian for parcel 1 prior to final plat approval. The septic system serving parcel 1 shall be located on the individual lot and maintain the minimum setback requirements of 10 feet from all property lines. If the 10-foot minimum setbacks from the property lines cannot be maintained, a properly recorded easement will be required pursuant to section 6.100 of the Land Division Ordinance. Condition 4, the establishment of a single dwelling on each parcel permitted under Measure 49 is subject to the conditions described in Final Order and Home Site Authorization Number E122333. Condition 5, prior to final plat approval, the applicant shall demonstrate conformance with standard 1, 2, 3, or 4 of subsection 6.090 of the Land Division Ordinance. Either domestic water shall be provided to each lot by a community water system or an on-site well or wells, with the location of the wells indicated on the face of the plat, or the following disclosure shall be placed on the plat. Quote, no municipal, public utility, community water supply, or private system will be provided to the purchaser of those lots noted hereon, end quote. Each lot not provided with a well or community water service shall be so identified. Condition 6, prior to final plat approval, the applicant shall record in the deed records for tax lot 3210-02400 acknowledgement that the development rights granted by Measure 49 Final Order E122333 have been irrevocably transferred to tax lot 2323-02000 and may no longer be used to justify a land partition or home site development. Condition 7, prior to final plat approval, the roadway providing access to all parcels shall be constructed to county specifications and inspected by a private engineer, or a road construction agreement shall be completed and recorded. Condition 8, road plan and profile drawings shall be submitted to and approved by the Public Works Department prior to final plat approval. And condition 9, prior to final plat approval, the applicant shall consolidate tax lots 3210-02400, 3210-02402, and 3210-02403. The lots created by Catherine and Billy McGar through a Measure 37 partition request and by Board Order 05-115. And that concludes the staff recommendation.
Thank you very much. Do you guys have any questions for Lance or Ken before I close the hearing down?
No.
Not that you can't ask them later. So with that, I'm going to close the hearing at 11:40. And we're into deliberations. Any questions, comments? I have one for Lance. That condition number 9 was added, I'm assuming, in conjunction with the applicant. And so they're fully well aware of the conditions.
I did not run this condition by the applicant.
I will say I had a discussion with Mark Wilcuts, and it's the condition about combining the McGar lots together. And we didn't run by the language, but we did let him know that we were going to have that as a condition. And at that time, he had no objections.
Okay. Okay. Commissioners, anything to add?
These are handout. In your way,
Just a question about the irrevocability of those conditions. Can you be more specific? Let me see.
Is that?
Mm,
Oh,
They no longer be used to justify.
yeah,
land
condition, it's
partition.
not condition number 6, I
Right.
presume so because they're transferring those development rights, we just want to make sure there's a paper trail and documentation that any future owner of those lots 20, 30, 40 years down the road may find, in DLCD records that, hey, this property had a potential for a home site or partition, and recording them on the deeds would, during a title search or due diligence period, that property owner would show the future buyer might learn that while they had those rights, they were transferred elsewhere, and so they have lost them.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
Yeah, it's to try to protect future owners.
So the confusion's been cleared up then when DLCD sent out the original, we approved this in general, and then the rebuttal from that came back of, no, we don't. Is that kind of gotten cleared up a little bit, and, or do you guys still feel?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. You know, I wish that when we send out a referral, we send out the whole packet that has been sent to us. And the referral says and underlined that if you don't respond back, then we presume you have no objections to this, because sometimes people don't respond, but they don't have any objections to it. And so we sent that referral to DLCD. You know, we had the meetings with DLCD beforehand, and again, I had said, I don't think we can even do this, and they went to DLCD and we had the meeting. They said, yeah, you can do this. So then when it gets down to the details, we sent that to them, and they didn't object or respond back that they had objected. If they had at that time, then we would have notified the applicant, and I would have given them their whole money back if they decided they wanted to withdraw it and not go forward. But instead, we went forward with the request, approved it with the conditions of approval, and it was only on the appeal that then we got the objection from DLCD. And I'm not saying any of that's really been resolved. And if the board decided that they didn't feel like there was enough evidence to justify the partitioning, we would be able to write findings for denial too. But, you know, we're just making the call the best we can on really a provision in the state law that's fairly broad. It just, all it says that if the receiving property is less suitable than other properties for farm or forest use. It doesn't say farm and forest use. It says farm or forest use. And less suitable isn't really defined. Obviously, we look at the soils, but that's not, it's not really called out as being the only thing that you're supposed to look at. And to me, planning wise, it makes more sense to have a dwelling on flat ground that could easily be protected than on a steep slope where you're going to have fire hazard. And they, you know, the applicant submitted this wildlife conservation plan and issue, and did point out that, you know, if you take down the trees on the steeper slope, you're going to have erosion. It's actually better to leave that the way it is for wildlife in the area. And wildlife is one of the things that is encouraged and protected in the forest zone. So all of this to say, it's your call. This is the call that we made. Might not be the right call.
I
But
appreciate that. There's only been one other time that you've done that to us, so.
Oh.
Wasn't that long ago.
But that's, you know, that's the way that Lance and I called it, and so we are looking forward to your wisdom.
I'm sure you are.
All three of you.
Anything else from the commissioners?
Nothing. Thank you.
No, I think that it's, you know, farming on these, you know, 30 plus acres, 30 to 40 is getting harder, or definitely smaller, but, you know, and a forest, you know, to do some quick math, that's in 30 years, you might be able to bring home, you know, $150,000. So I have a hard time with not going that, you know, not letting somebody do what they need to do on their property. And just the fact that, you know, the state of farming has changed. They've said that they've had 4 different farmers look at the property to come and to lease it out, and, you know, nobody wants to bring equipment, and, you know, so it gets harder to be able to do these things. And so I appreciate the lens of that, as I've thought through and read through a lot of this paperwork. So, and I know historically it's been farmed, but that was a lot of years, and, you know, it was family farms, and so that it's not apples to apples on those things. So just like to point that out as kind of my train of thought in this.
Well, with that then, I would make a motion to approve with conditions presented from staff. The 8 conditional originals plus 1 added that Lance read through. Is there any further discussion?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Last one we did, we went against you, but it's not very often we do. So thanks for hanging in there and making the tough decisions and advising the best you guys can. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh.
And I think we'd like 3 weeks to draft up findings. So just to come back in 3 weeks for adoption of findings.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we are on to finding my paper that I had notes on right there. Make sure that I didn't. We are on to K, announcements. Commissioner King?
Yeah, I think we've, well, not everything, but we've covered a lot of my stuff. We had the transit meeting, advisory meeting last week, and as Cynthia had said, they're getting ready to bring out the public outreach, hopefully in April, for the fair system, and, you know, really just the struggles that we're seeing with federal funding and state funding, concerns that are starting to come down with those and in services. So I share that concern of Cynthia's on the advisory committee. Also, met with Brandon and Brian this week on the radio tower stuff. We talked about that at length. Newburgh had a rate discussion, the anticipated rate increase of about $14 a month for 27 and 28, a little over 5%, coming down the pike. So they're getting ready to do that.
Rate increase
On water, sewer,
Oh.
utilities. Some of them were in that 4.7 range, but 5.2. So, so yeah, hard decisions there. And you know that Newburgh does a good job of keeping their books, you know, pretty tight and not running in debt and so on. And so I think this is just kind of some of that. The conversation was wrapped around a lot of those. I got a chance to stop by the VFW. Thanks for bringing that up last week. Seemed like a great turnout. Food was great. The catering company is always great. Corned beef and cabbage. Stopped by a levy conversation at Edwards in Newburgh as well. And Newburgh's looking to put on a levy for the school district that the Dave Parker, the superintendent, put on. And I was springboard to just get some context on their end for the bypass. So yeah, just to get myself a little bit further up to speed on their end. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
All right.
Chair, do you mind if
Yep.
I jump in just?
Yeah,
for a couple,
of
not-
course.
Not announcements?
Anytime.
Okay. Because I know we talked about an executive session for next week, and we also talked about a work session about transit in 2 weeks. I think another item that I'd like to get a work session scheduled for and have Sam join, and I'm just going to throw out a couple dates, but we need to talk about dog control.
Yeah.
And I think there's some conversations that I'd like to have before we go into budget presentations, even though we've got some proposals, what the budget's going to look like. But I think there's some items to be addressed this current fiscal year, and I just want to make sure we're going the right path before we unveil a proposed budget and make sure that there's consensus from the board. And I was kind of going to propose either the 26th or April 2nd because I haven't checked with Sam on his availability for this, and this gives a little bit of more of a lead time.
Okay.
Because I know he's got a request to talk about involving a case and some funding needs to
You said
cover.
26th.
Yeah, March 26th or
the
April 2nd.
I can do either one of those.
Yeah. Yes.
I figured I just picked one of the two, whichever works best for the
Sam,
sheriff, and
yeah.
go from there.
Thursdays are blocked for us.
And if you have to, I mean,
No, you're Thursday.
you can stack them too if you have to.
Okay.
I know it might suck for a little bit longer day, but if we got to get stuff done, let's get her done.
I think should be sufficient time, and it allows me some time to kind of get some things in order. As far as budget, because I know Sam's looking at it, and honestly, I'm really busy with budget stuff right now, so I'll take the additional time to kind of prepare for that work session.
Thank you.
Is it really just those three that we're looking at, the sheriff, transit, and we just heard from HHS? So those are really
As far as work sessions
session
go.
before.
It's really the two, transit, and I think
Yeah.
dog control are probably the most pressing. If
Yeah.
there's another item, let me know.
Okay.
I think at some point we could talk about facilities again in the near future, but related to Evans Street and some capacity and some ideas being thrown around, but I'd rather put that off a little bit further.
Other side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
You-
Thank you
you
for letting
bet.
me jump in.
You bet.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's in order technically, so Commissioner Stern.
Thank you,
Unless
Chair.
Bailey's got something. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, man, that skipping, that doesn't sound good. So we're moving on, Commissioner.
Doesn't have a mic.
So just talking about the VFW, I serve on the Yamhill County Suicide Prevention Coalition, and there's a nexus there definitely with the veterans, and especially with what we're seeing now in terms of what's going on in the Middle East. There's a lot of concern. So we talked a little bit about building future awareness in Yamhill County with the VA in Portland. So that's something that we're going to continue to work closely with. So that's been something a lot of veterans are really experiencing difficulties, especially and people who have loved ones in the region or who could potentially go to the region. So I thank the VFW and the supporting groups there. Thursday was a 4-hour CPRD board meeting to discuss usage of the Parrot Mountain Farm trails. It was basically horses versus bikes, and it was really, very impactful because the equestrians are concerned about the danger posed by cyclists on the trails. The board did ultimately vote to spend $10,000 studying the potential locations within the district properties to go ahead and look at locations for mountain biking. The Bob and Crystal Riley Park has been a flashpoint of contention with bikes on the 325-acre Parrot Mountain property. I did testify as a resident in favor of what I believe was Crystal Parrot Riley's wishes, and I've known her or had known her when I first moved there 34 years ago. She did talk about wanting to restore the property to basically agricultural and just equestrian use. On Friday, we had the Local Government Advisory Council outreach, talked about that providers and the requirements of HR 1 regarding eligibility of SNAP and Medicaid. That's going to be something that requires outreach to the recipients to let them know that there is some eligibility change. We had additional discussions amongst the committee members from Oregon Health Authority, from the CCOs, Local Mental Health Authority, ODHS, and those ongoing partnerships. Northwest Senior Disability Services Board meeting was Monday, talked about improving Oregon's SNAP error rate, which was pretty high compared to other states. So they're looking at telling people what the eligibility changes are going to be. None of the anticipated reductions are happening. We were told the sky was going to fall, but so far all the services are being addressed. Board of Health meeting on Wednesday, a nutrition program update, nutrition as primary prevention, which was, it's very, very exciting to see that we're finally looking at nutrition as prevention for illnesses. The Nutrition Summit is coming up in May, and that's going to be kind of patterned after our opioid summit. The Title V federal funding through the state, setting priorities. We are going to be setting a priority of maternal child health And the Neighborhood Food Project is basically taking the food bank, just basically getting people in the neighborhoods to be conversant with how to donate and how to get the food to YCAP's food bank. We had our Adult Recovery Court Policy Committee meeting yesterday with Community Justice, Judge Ladd Wiles, Behavioral Health, the DA's office, parole and probation, and we talked about eligibility requirements for the recovery court. Met with Community Services at Oregon Housing and Community Services yesterday. Talked about something, it was a moderate income revolving loan program. It's a new kind of financing. It doesn't involve nonprofits. It involves private developers. And it is in relation to Senate Bill 1537, which takes $75 million in state general fund to expand to low and moderate income housing. So it would basically be one of those things we're going to have to bring before the board and decide whether or not it's something we want to sign off on. But they will work with the local jurisdictions to pass an ordinance and then basically be exempt from property taxes for 10 years. So I was contacted by a developer who's got a potential project in Newburgh, one with some specific property in mind. So we will be talking about that in the future. House Bill 4145, which, as we know, was sort of taken after trying to ram through the provisions of Measure 114, which is the latest iteration of that, was pretty significant in terms of Second Amendment rights. But this new amendment did replace, it did kind of gut stuff, which does improve the bill. It's going to be up for a vote in the Senate tomorrow. The law is still pretty bad, but it's far less damaging than what we've seen with House Bill 4145. So we can only assume that, fortunately, people have put pressure on the Republicans and created an environment for this positive change. So we're hoping that that will happen and that this bill will be considered. That's it.
Jumping in again.
Yeah.
Because, and apologies if this was discussed last week and I may have missed it, but with Ken being here and you mentioned CPRD, we also have the discussions around bridges and I'm not sure where we're at as far as process wise or getting something, what we need to do. And you can throw something at me later if you're not prepared to.
I was going to say that we do have a few situations that are coming up that it would be good to have an updated code on how we're going to deal with roads because we have Hampton Lumber wants to replace a bridge that is in one of the affected zones. And there's a desire on ODOT's part to put in a roundabout, and they have some of the property going through another affected zone, a light industrial zone. And so it'd be nice to have that, decide whether that's going to be changed or not. The other thing is I was going to be asking for a work session and just starting on the memo for that, asking if the board would like to just look at all of our code provisions that we think ought to be updated, and then maybe have you guys check and say, yes, please go ahead with this one, or no, we don't want to make any sort of modifications like that. The third thing related to code is the board had asked me to take a look at going from 5 rooms for a B&B down to, from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And so Tiffany's been working on that one. And I was going to ask for a work session for both the bed and breakfast and for the code in general, and maybe we could do the road at the same time.
Yeah. I think that's great. And what I'd like to add to that, there's about 4 different pieces to what prompted the CPRD Ewing Young Bridge I think this is the 3rd go round. So I know I kind of discussed with you this, but you were gone. But when we do come with that conversation, there's a few things. One is the Planning Commission's recommendation from 4 years ago. It was like late 2022, I think. We need that. We need the original application or the original decision for the Ewing Bridge from about 3 years ago. We need and I have the email from Steve Elzinga of the recommendation.
Mhm.
So they tweaked it based on, they were going to appeal our denial to LUBA, and then CPRD pulled that back, and then Steve Elzinga sent us from CPRD reformatted version of that. We need that. And then the fourth one is what CPRD just sent to us most recently. I think all four of those things need to get before either Jody or whoever our new land use attorney is. We need to get that before them so that they can be a part of that conversation, because I think that's going to be huge to meld all four of those and decide what we're going to end up doing.
Right, and it seems to be an ongoing conversation, so I don't want CPRD to think that we dropped the ball because we didn't. It's just been a lot of different things we've had to address, but yes,
Yeah,
we
because
need.
I think the other big question is going to be process and where we're at, because, you know, like originally before, there was a planning commission recommendation, it came to the board, you know, that it's subject to that. You know, if there's that many changes, does this need to go back before the planning
Well,
commission? Or
we could do the road as a separate docket item because actually it's been before the board and was tabled before the board. And so
Okay.
the only thing we would need for that, if the board desired to bring that back up, is just a notice on the hearing before the board for a deliberation decision or taking more testimony, whichever part in the process you want to go to or go back to. So we could do that one
Yeah, so
separately.
that wouldn't necessarily be a work session because that's a tabled hearing item and we'd almost have to do that as a hearing.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's probably true. Yeah.
Okay, we'll figure it out, and
Yeah.
I guess that's my general guidance for what I would want to see during that conversation. Then the main key to that's going to be a recommendation from Jody or
Mhm.
another attorney that.
I think we still have Jody on
Yeah.
the
Okay.
engagement, so
Yeah.
I would probably
Okay.
start there.
Yeah.
And that's all I have. I'll shut off my mic.
Well, I'm
and
going to
put away
have one
my
more
camera.
for you, but I'm going to get into mine, and then we're going to come back to you again. So,
Okay.
because I wasn't here for it. Last Friday, I attended the McMinnville Fire District's annual awards banquet. Just a real quick, huge shout out to all the years of service awards that were given out. One of them, Doug Cummins, 45 years of service
Wow.
award, and still going. So that was fantastic. It was a great evening. Dayton City Council meeting, they sent a couple dates for us to have a joint meeting to finally, hopefully,
Yeah.
get the discussion on the board for them, whatever it looks like. We need to have the discussion what it looks like for us to transfer ownership of Dayton Landing to Dayton. They want it. We've agreed that we want them to have it.
Right.
It just, we need to finally hash out the details. I know there's a lot of different pieces that keep coming and going, but I feel like we have two dates now. I think one in May, or both of them were in May. I
Yeah,
can't remember.
He put out some dates, but I was kind of confused about the time because knowing that that's a volunteer council, I'm not sure if that was, we were going to go meet with them in an evening meeting or if they were going to come and meet with us.
He sent, if you didn't get it, I'll send it to you. He
Okay.
sent one email back after they had their meeting Monday, because they discussed it, and so they would have discussed timing, I would hope. So I'll send Jeremy's to you, and then you can get with us timing wise. There's two dates that they
Yeah.
put on there for us to go meet with Dayton City Council
Yeah.
and try to get most of the details in place and figure out what this. And I would like to have Travis Pease there also.
Yeah.
And heck, even if we can get the Marine Board there too, because everybody's gonna have questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, I'll get that going and emailed to you so we can get back with Jeremy on that.
Cool.
Back to you again. I missed the construction meeting, and I just,
Right.
anything updates on progress? I know we kind of
Oh.
touched on the HHS and.
I will say, number one, Haworth is just hitting it out of the park. They're just doing a great job for us. I couldn't be more pleased, and I just feel like, you know, that's money well spent for the improvements that they're doing, and they're just going through. So the big thing for this week is HHS is moving in, and so we have, like I said earlier, the full second floor is fully occupied. So they put that at the front of the list because we have a lease coming to an end, and so we're going to be out of Kirby, and so ready for the next tenants to come in for that.
Yeah, Mac
location.
Water and Light, yeah.
Yeah.
Worked out great.
So the second floor is occupied. And then I think the other one is we're getting closer, I think, for our move. for the commissioners and admin for our space. Right now, it looks like the majority's, the construction is going to be completed around April 15th, tax day. But with budgets and everything else, and there are some smaller items that need to happen before we move in. So we're probably looking the first week of May that we could start occupying the third floor. So then construction would be done on that portion of the building. And then the clerk's office is proceeding, walls are going up, and HVAC work is happening. And so they're making a lot of progress. I think the one item that's going to take a little bit longer is the hearing room, and the dais is going to be one of the last things. And but otherwise, and then also the counter that's going in for the tax and assessment office, because we're putting that in while they're occupying it. So there's going to be a little bit of a coordination and dance there to make that happen. So, but we're on schedule. Everybody involved doing a great job. I also want to throw kudos out to Don Fairley in our facilities team. He's another one who's he's taken point on this, and he's doing an outstanding job. And then all the departments that are moving into the building and kind of facilitating that, we're slowly occupying it. And I'm seeing a lot more traffic coming in where people know that it's a county building. In fact, I witnessed a couple times where we had to redirect. No, this is not the courthouse. The courthouse is another block over. You know, so it's kind of interesting to see all that coming together.
I can tell you one of the cooler factors of, and this is one of the things that I think as a board, when we first approved this, that we were striving for, and that was the consolidation of it, to just really have that, I don't want to say homier feeling, but everybody in one spot. I sat down by the main entrance for, I was waiting for somebody for a lunch meeting at just that main couch. And just that, watching everybody go by, be like, hey, have a nice day. Hey, have a great lunch, whatever. Just that interaction alone, I think, is going to help that vibe for all the employees. So I am really looking forward to fully moving in there and being over there ourselves. I think it's going to be great for all the commissioners to be in there with a lot of the employees that help run this county, and it's going to be cool. So yesterday had at Amity City Council meeting, they adopted their 2026-2030 capital improvement plan. Also yesterday, I had my COG meeting, but it was our legislative, and we always meet early in the morning, 7 a.m. And they asked for an update on 1599, and so I gave it to them. I am, I don't know if you guys have been watching or not. I'm sure everybody's seen it, but SB 1599 moves the election date for parts of Chapter 1 in the Oregon Laws 2025 special session. Was referred to the people by referendum petition 2026-302. And it was supposed to be originally held at the general election November 3rd, and they've moved it to be held on May 19th now. So with that, and it passed both chambers, and it's been signed by the governor very rapidly, went through both chambers and signed by the governor. Shortly after that, I joined a lawsuit with Senator Bruce Starr, Rep. Ed Deal, and the Taxpayers Association, along with representatives from every other county in Oregon. So there's over 40 of us on this lawsuit. There's multiple concerns. A lot of them you can find on the Taxpayer Association's website. It goes through scheduling order. The scheduling order, it cuts our statutory response time almost in half. I think is huge. But for me, because I was one of the signature gatherers and certifiers of the signatures on all of the sheets that were originally certified through the Secretary of State that said November 3rd in the very top right of all those signature pages. To me, that was a huge, I think that was a huge point to everybody that was signing, that they wanted this to be on the November 3rd ballot. Not to mention, it was my message that I was giving while gathering signatures that, hey, this is going to be on the November 3rd ballot. Do you want to sign? Yes, I do. So part of this lawsuit is to basically get a order from the courts on whether it was constitutional to go through the state legislature to unilaterally change once a referendum has already started an election day. So originally we were November 3rd for the petition sheets, and the legislature said, nope, we want it on May 19th. We truly believe because it already started the process that they cannot change the date on it. So we're going to get, along with a bunch of other issues, that is one of the questions that we're going to get answered through the court system. So I have signed on to that. I am personally a representative from Yamhill County listed on that lawsuit. I mean, it's always through the whole conversations, even through the, I think it was House Bill 2025, when we were talking about the transportation tax originally, this board definitely did not agree with that tax as a majority. So I want to make sure that you guys know I'm doing my part to try to keep that voice going forward, that we want to make sure that this goes before the voters when we told them it would go before them, which is November 3rd. Again, if you guys need any more information, there's a litany of issues that are on this that you can see on the Taxpayers Associated of Oregon, which is the OregonWatchdog.com. And then I have a shameless plug for a couple shows that are happening in Yamhill County. One is that gallery. My youngest is in Bye Bye Birdie. That starts this weekend, opens tomorrow, and it runs through every week, basically every weekend in March. You'll see her there dancing and singing, everything that she loves. My oldest, even though she graduated from George Fox, she's actually in the Hunchback of Notre Dame at George Fox University playing violin, and that runs the rest of this week and into next week. If you need any more information for either one of those, you can go to each of their websites, whether it's Gallery Theater or George Fox University. With that, does anybody have anything else they want to chime in on?
Just as a piece to your November 3rd, and if you're talking about it from the lens of Yamhill County, I completely agree that it should be on November 3rd. I think that that's what the signatures gathered. That's what people wanted. That's what they got. That was the intent. I think it's completely wrong that it got moved up. So if you need some sort of consensus from me or the three of, I'm assuming you're on that side too, but I completely agree with that, and pushing back on that. I think that that's a good thing.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to close her out at 12:15. Thanks, everyone.